I'm 73 years old, and I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. I've spent 55 years of my life building my career, step by step, rung by rung, with the belief that if I worked hard enough, if I sacrificed enough, then a better life would be waiting for me ahead. I believed that for decades, just like so many Americans still believe right now, we're taught that working non-stop is the right thing, that missing evenings at home, cancelled vacations, missed moments with family are just temporary prices for a more secure future. And I know just hearing me say this is enough to make some people uneasy, even annoyed, because it hits right at what you're relying on to keep pushing every day. I'm not telling this story to act wiser than anyone, or to stand on a pedestal and lecture you on how to live. I'm telling it because I don't have much time left, and there are truths that if I don't say now, I'll take them to the grave. For 55 years I always told myself that just a few more years, just finish this project, just reach that position, then I'll slow down, I'll make up for it later. If you're telling yourself that right now, I want you to know one thing. I said that for almost my entire life, and the cost of it is much bigger than you imagine. When I look back on the past 55 years, I see very clearly the person I used to be, and I know a lot of people hearing this story are living exactly like I did back then. In my 20s I stepped into the working world with all the excitement and naivety of someone who believed hard work was enough. I grew up in an environment where people believed a person's value was measured by how hard they worked, how much pressure they could endure, and how much personal stuff they were willing to sacrifice. So I didn't see anything unusual about staying at the office later than everyone else, taking on extra work no one wanted, nodding to requests that I knew deep down would take away time from my family. I thought that was responsibility, duty, the way a man had to act if he wanted to be the pillar. Work quickly took center stage in my life, not because anyone forced it, but because I willingly gave it that spot. In my 30s, I started seeing the first rewards. I got promoted, assigned bigger projects, trusted by superiors. Along with those successes came late nights home, cold dinners, weekends cut short by an emergency call. I always had reasonable sounding excuses. I told my wife this was a critical phase, that if I didn't push now, I'd regret it later. I told my kids Dad was busy because he was working for the family's future. And most importantly, I told myself there'd be time to make up for it. I believed it. Sincerely, because if I didn't, I'd have to face the guilt I wasn't ready to accept. By my 40s, I had everything society calls success in my hands. My title made others nod in respect. My salary was enough for a sense of security. My packed schedule made me feel important. My phone rang non-stop. Emails came constantly, and I started equating busyness with self-worth. My family by then was used to me not being home for dinner, used to me missing parent meetings, small celebrations. No one complained much anymore, and I mistook that silence for acceptance. I told myself they understood, that they knew I was doing it all for them. In my 50s, looking back on the path, I truly believed I'd done everything right. I felt proud of my career, of what I'd built from nothing. I thought I was living proof of sacrificing the present for the future. Whenever my body felt tired, whenever a bit of emptiness flickered in my heart, I reassured myself with the familiar lines, just finish this project, just get through this phase. When things stabilize more, I'll slow down. I believed I was building a better future for my family, that the moments I missed today would be compensated by security, abundance and peace later. And then, at 52, my body decided to stop. Despite all the plans and excuses I'd built up over years. That day, I was sitting in a familiar meeting room, facing quarterly reports, numbers I'd seen thousands of times, deadlines I believed couldn't be delayed. I remember clearly the dizziness hitting, heart pounding erratically, the room shrinking and spinning. The next moment, I woke up in a completely different room, on a cold bed surrounded by machines, wires and steady impersonal beeps. I saw my wife standing in the corner, face pale with fear, saw my kids looking at me with eyes, both worried and distant, as if for the first time they truly realized I could disappear. When everyone left, when the room became frighteningly quiet, I lay there alone, and for the first time in decades, I had nothing to do. No emails to reply to, no calls to take, no business cards or titles to cling to. All the things that had consumed my mind, made me believe I was important, vanished completely when I faced the possibility I might not wake up again. It was in that moment that I realized for the past 55 years I'd been living on autopilot. I did what was expected, chased goals society laid out, and called it responsibility, while rarely stopping to ask what I was really living for. The career I believed would protect me, give me meaning and value, was completely powerless when I faced the fragile line between life and death. After that heart attack, I couldn't look at my career the same way, but the scariest part is, the awakening didn't come as a clear, explosive moment. It came quietly, slowly, building bit by bit, just like the years of my life had slipped by without a sound. I started realizing that what I called success was really like a hamster wheel. You jump on with all your strength, run non-stop, panting, believing if you run long enough you'll reach the destination. But the truth is, there's no destination. Every time you achieve what you thought would satisfy you, the smug feeling lasts only a moment. Then immediately, another goal appears, bigger, harder, demanding more time and energy. And you tell yourself just this one more time. I repeated that cycle for decades without realizing that while I ran, my real life continued outside, slowly drifting away from me. I remember clearly a friend, someone I once saw as the icon of everything I wanted to be. He worked more than me, was more ambitious, built a business everyone admired. We often told each other that when things stabilized, we'd rest, enjoy, make up to our families. But that time never came. He always had another project, another deal, another critical phase to get through. Then one day, after years of exhausting work, he had a stroke and was gone. I stood at his funeral, among people in black and formulaic condolences, and I heard his son say his dad was a very successful man, but one he hardly knew. That sentence chilled me. Not because it was tragic, but because it was too familiar. I realized that without that heart attack, very likely one day, my kids would say the same about me. From that moment, I started looking back at my life through a different lens. I no longer looked at what I'd achieved, but at what was missing. I saw birthdays I wasn't there for, because of a meeting called unmovable. I saw family dinners with an empty chair where I should have been, but I was at the office, staring at a screen, handling things I don't even remember now. I remember times my kids told school stories, and I just nodded to get it over with, because my mind was elsewhere among numbers and plans. I remember calls I meant to make to my parents, then delayed because I was too tired, thinking tomorrow's fine, next week's okay. I didn't realize how fast they aged, until time gave us no more chances. When my dad passed, what haunted me wasn't disagreements or unsaid words in tense moments, but all the ordinary moments I missed. The Sundays I didn't call, the meals I didn't come home for, the times I chose to stay at work a bit longer, instead of driving to visit him. I realized that what really gnaws at you in old age isn't big failures or wrong career decisions. I don't lie awake over a failed project or a missed business opportunity. I lie there thinking about trips I always wanted, but never made time for. I think about relationships that faded, not from arguments, but from prolonged absence. I think about afternoons I could have gone home early, sat down and really listened, but chose to stay at the office, thinking that's what a responsible person does. The most painful thing is realizing I don't regret failing. I regret not trying the things that really mattered. I regret not stopping when I should have. I regret believing I could fix it later, that I could go back and compensate when things were more stable. The harsh truth is, there's no such thing as later. No way to go back when kids are still small, when parents are healthy, when friends are still plentiful. Time doesn't give you bargaining room, and it doesn't care about your reasonable excuses. The clearer I saw that, the more I understood that the cost of 55 years chasing a career wasn't in the fatigue or stress, but in the parts of life gone forever. I can buy back a lot with money, but I can't buy back a past family dinner, a conversation that never happened, or a relationship cooled from lack of presence. My career gave me a lot, from recognition to security, but it took away things that can never be bought back. After realizing the true cost of the past 55 years, I started doing what I'd always put off. I slowed down, not because I suddenly got wiser, but because I understood, if I didn't slow down now, I'd have no more chances. I reduced my work pace intentionally, even though at first it made me incredibly uncomfortable. For years my schedule defined who I was. Each day divided into meetings, deadlines, unpostponable tasks. When I started cutting them, I felt like I was betraying my old self, like I was becoming lazy or useless. But then I realized it was just a deep-rooted reflex. I started learning to say no, a simple word that before was almost non-existent in my vocabulary. I said no to unnecessary meetings, no to requests just to prove I was always ready, no to sacrificing more personal time for things no longer truly important. Each time I said no, I felt both relieved and uneasy, because I'd gotten used to letting others and work decide my value. As my work pace slowed, I started prioritizing people over schedules. I spent time with family, not as a slot squeezed between two tasks, but as a conscious choice. I lingered longer at meals, listened instead of just being physically present. I called old friends, not because I needed something, but just to ask how they were. I started realizing those purposeless conversations nourished me the most. I also changed how I viewed success. Before I accumulated everything, money, titles, assets, as if more meant safer. Now I choose experiences over accumulation. I take small trips I used to think weren't worth the time. I do things I once delayed, because they didn't bring real value. I read books slower, walk more, and allow myself to enjoy moments that produce no tangible results. The paradox is that doing all that, I'm more aware than ever that I have less time than before. I no longer fool myself that the future is very long. Each morning I wake up, I know the days ahead are fewer than those behind. But that very limitation makes me live more authentically. I no longer put off important meetings, no longer hold back words of love thinking there'll be other occasions. I live with a clearer sense of presence, because I know not everything can be put off. Even so, I won't sugarcoat this phase. My change is real, but it came late. Some relationships can't go back to how they were. Some voids nothing can fill. There are times I sit alone and feel regret very clearly, not loudly, but simmering and persistent. I regret the years I can't get back. Regret the versions of myself I lost chasing my career. But along with that regret is a clarity I never had before. I no longer delude myself that I can start over or fix everything. I can only live the remaining life more honestly with myself. I don't live longer after slowing down, but I live deeper. I no longer measure life by what I achieve, but by what I truly experience and feel. I don't live longer. I just live more truly. Once I've slowed down long enough to truly look straight at my life, I began to understand something I used to think was just a cliche. The true value of a life doesn't lie in what you own or achieve, but in the people who've walked beside you and the moments you were fully present in. What remains in the end isn't the title on your business card or the numbers in your account, but the shared memories, the unhurried conversations, the times you were completely there without being pulled away by work or schedules. I realized that most of my life's most precious memories have nothing to do with my career. They're tied to simple evenings, unplanned trips, ordinary moments that I once thought weren't important enough to prioritize. I know many younger people hearing this will think I'm speaking from an easy position, that I can slow down because I've finished, that they still have bills to pay, families to provide for. I used to think exactly the same. I believed I had no choice, that work and responsibility forced me to set everything else aside. But looking back, I understand that most of the time, it wasn't obligation, it was a choice I didn't dare admit to. I'm not saying you should quit your job or abandon your career. Work has its place, and everyone needs stability to live. But what I learned too late is that you don't have to sell your entire life to work to be seen as responsible or successful. You can work hard while still keeping time for people and real life. You can pursue a career without trading away your presence in your own family. The difference lies in where you draw boundaries and what you're willing to protect. I can't go back and relive my life. Can't undo the choices I made or reclaim the years that are gone, but you still can. If you've listened this far, I want to tell you straight, without softening it, because time doesn't do that for anyone. You're reading these words while your parents are aging day by day, while your children are growing up without waiting for you to be less busy, while your close friends gradually get fewer calls because everyone's occupied. You might not notice it today, but there will come a day when you suddenly jolt at seeing your parents' hair turn noticeably gray, when you realize your kids don't need you the way they used to, when an old friend slips out of your life without you getting to say goodbye. In all those moments, your career won't pause to wait for you. It'll keep running, with or without you. If you disappeared from the office tomorrow, your position would soon be filled. Your emails would be forwarded. Your tasks would be reassigned. The working world isn't loyal to you the way you think it is. I wish at 30 someone had told me this bluntly. I wish I could go back and tell my younger self not to try so hard to impress people who won't carry your name in their final memories. Don't trade your health, family, and presence for fleeting praise and brief feelings of importance. Don't tell yourself there's plenty of time, because time is the one thing you can't buy more of, borrow, or negotiate for. I can't make choices for you, and I don't want to. But I want you to ask yourself honestly, right now, not later. What are you trading for your career? And is that price really worth it? When your career no longer needs you, what do you want to have left? If this story has made you pause and think differently about your life, please subscribe so you don't miss the next stories told from real experiences and lessons that cost an entire lifetime. I don't have much time left, but if what I've lived and lost can help you make better choices sooner, I want to keep sharing them with you.